All right, let's so this one is due today, just a reminder, because I think only a couple have got it in. So that is I think it's these.
It's 2 and 6.
Yeah, so just make sure that by the end of today, they get uploaded. We're all good. We're going to continue with this. What page was that in your book?
145 on the 8th edition.
Okay, so on the 7th, it's 160. Sorry about that. But I actually made a copy and put it and attached it just so I didn't get, I really need to bring the right book is what I need to do, but I can't seem to figure that one out. So yeah, it's ridiculous. All right, so this week we're going to continue on with that. I'm just showing you Blackboard so you kind of understand how this is going to pace, because we have a quiz on Thursday and then we have a midterm in 2 weeks. So I'm just giving you notice ahead of time. And I did attach it here. We're going to continue to work with this document. Okay, so the tick marks. Cam Scanner does such a great job making images. I just love that little software, I gotta say. So if you're not using Cam Scanner, you should be using it because it makes bad sketches look good, I guess I'd say. And you're gonna make some sketches for me, so you might as well use it. All right, anyway, so it's attached. It's also in your book, but that's all good. So the calendar. Today, there'll be a short lecture on Thursday. There'll be an online quiz available all day Thursday. Basically doing exactly what I'm going to talk about right now. And then there's going to be lab 8, which is another homework assignment that'll be due the following Tuesday. So I guess focus on the quiz. Don't miss that one. And what we're going to do today. So there we go. Oh, and the midterm, which I mentioned, right? Yeah, it's there. So it'll be online on Thursday. So it'll be available all day, same kind of thing. The quizzes and exams go here. So this is homework. We can all see each other's, which is kind of nice, especially when you're doing these and you're looking for hidden lines and you think you have it. Look at somebody else's. And if they've got a hidden line in there, make sure that it should be there. But it's a great way to look at it because they're going to get more complicated. And they are just little puzzles. So, and then when you upload, the exam and quiz will go here. It's already here, just the upload slots there. All right, good enough. New share, let's go to this. I'm going to talk about sketching because we're going to do some pure sketching now. Just one exercise in it, but I want to give you some strategies for it. First of all, the green paper is a good strategy. If you're going to sketch, use green paper. If you're going to use printer paper, and put green paper under it because it'll actually come through and you'll see the grid. And it's just a lot easier to make the hand sketches because you have at least vertical and horizontal. Okay. So the one that I'm going to do. So I'm just going to kind of pick one here. And then I'll do it and lay it out and we'll practice scale. So I'll just go through a few things for the video. So you can refer back to it. So I'm going to do number 8. And it looks like this. And we'll say that each tick mark is 20 inches. So this is a big object. Each tick mark 20 inches. Okay, I won't get it completely done, but I'm definitely going to start it. And think through scale. So that's really what I want to capture is how we're creating our scales and that we have enough room to dimension because we're going to start dimensioning this. So if each tick is worth 20 inches and we're thinking about the front view and we all are going to use the same front view. So we get the same kind of looking drawings. So we're always going to use this as our front view when we do this page. Okay. So when we do objects out in the real world, we want the most descriptive view to be the front view. The most descriptive view. Okay. So that would be the view that like shows the best profile of the object. That will be the front. For example, if we were going to actually sketch a car, the the most descriptive view of a car is, you know, something like, let's give you a wagon, because I'm a big wagon fan, right? It's gonna be that. That's the most descriptive view, but we would call that like the side of the car, right? But this is what we'd use for front, because it's the most descriptive. And then we would draw this view over here, which would have some wheels, right, and come up. That's not that descriptive. This is much more descriptive. That's why this becomes the front view. So in a vehicle, the side would be the front view. Does that make sense? So when you're looking at an object, you go, oh, okay, you know, what's the most descriptive view of this object if I was going to draw it? You know, is that very descriptive? Not so much, but this view, like almost all of us would recognize that, even if it was just the outside of it as a tape measure, right? So you look for the most descriptive view, that becomes the front, and then you go side, top. Okay. All right. But in this, we're all going to be kind of stuck with the front view that we get. All right. So how many tick marks do we have in the front view? Because I'm going to set that up first. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7 times 20 is, because every tick mark is 20 inches, 140, right? So 140, that's definitely not fitting on here, right? Obviously. So if I start thinking about scales, it's going to be beyond 6. So my triangle scales are not going to work, right? So if I take 140 and let's just say I'll do 10, that brings it down to 14 inches. That's not going to work. So this is how you're going to go about figuring out your scale, right? You got to get it onto the paper. So 140 inches, what would 15 do? 9, that's still too big. I mean, this is only 11 inches, right? 9 would be like to there. So let's try 27, still too big, right? So let's go with 30. So I'm just taking 140 and dividing by these numbers to figure out what's going to fit. 4.66. That's here to here. That might work. The side view is pretty narrow and the depth is pretty narrow. So that could work. I don't know if it's going to give me enough room for dimensions. So I'd probably go even smaller. So 140, whoops, 140, I did 30, right? 35. Ooh, I like that, 4 inches even, right? So I'm thinking 35. So I'm thinking a 1 to 35 scale. And you want to note that right away so you don't forget what your scale is that you're working with. So then every number that we get off of the drawing, we got to divide by 35 to place it, right? Does that make sense? So that, and I just came up with it just from the width of the front, but I need to check and make sure everything's going to fit. So pretty sure that, you know, 4 inches here is here to here, right? That's going to give me enough room here. How right side, how wide is that? Say again. 1, 2, 3 ticks. Yeah, 3 ticks. I agree. Yep. So 60 inches. Because each tick is 20, right? So 60, enter, 35, divide. We're looking at 1.71. Do you not think it's 3 ticks? I think it's 3. I think it's, yeah, but you got an extra space down there at the bottom, right? So you got 1, 2, and then that one, 3. So there's 2 up here, 1, 2, but then there's this one down here, 3. Yep. So that comes out to 1.71. So that's pretty skinny over here. That's like 1 point, there's 7.5, 7.1 right there. So. Okay, so far? 1 to 35, I can't forget. All right, so now how tall is the front view? 1, 2, 3, 4 units. 4 times 20 is 80, and 80 divided by 35. 2.28. So totally okay. There's 2.5. To use a scale to kind of give yourself some dimensions, right? It's okay to do that. But notice that every line I'm drawing is by hand. So when I say hand sketch, that's no straight edge. That's just hand sketch. And I'm doing it really light right now, and I'm not even fussing with it. I'm just trying to figure out how my scale works. Okay. All right. Now the top view, looking down, how deep is it? We already know that one, right? It's 2.71, wasn't that? Was it 271? 171. Thank you. Yeah, it was 171. So that's up here somewhere. 175 is there, a little less than that. So something like that. So that's all you really need to do to verify that, hey, this is going to fit. I'm going to have enough room for some dimensions here and some here if I actually dimension it. This I could slide up to give myself some more space between. You know, depending on how much dimension it is, it might still be too big. So if you think it's too big at all, then it's like, oh, go to 40 and then even just make it a little smaller. Okay. All right. So now that we have that, we can think about actually sketching it. So looking at the front view, it looks like if we're looking at it from here, we have visible line, and visible line. You know, all of those geometries are visible. The invisible geometry is this shelf back here that goes all the way across, the assumption is, and then this slot that goes down through. That's not going to be visible from the front view. So when you do it, just focus on one view, like, okay, just looking at the front, what can I see? What can I not see, right? I can see the hole, so it's going to show up as a hole. All right, so it's 1 unit up, that's 20. 20 divided by 35 is 0.57. Okay. So I can use my scale, or I could, you know, I could figure this grid out and figure out how much the grid's worth too. That might be another way to do it, where you didn't have to measure everything. But, you know, 0.5 is there, 0.625 is here, so 0.571 somewhere in between. So it's roughly in here. So then I'm going to use my grid and make a couple marks. So sketching technique, the easiest sketching technique, and I am no artist, I can make some straight lines, that's about it, right? Is you need a start point and an end point. Even with the grid paper, it's nice to have a start and an end point. So get those two spots and then try to work the line from one end to the other. And I would do it light and I would darken in the end. But if you do that, if you work from one to the other, you'll end up going something like this and then trying to come back to the spot. So the book says, don't do it that way. Use small strokes and start here, come towards it, and then connect it in the middle. And you have a better chance of keeping it straight, especially with a start point and an end point that is on an angle, right? So you can start this thing towards that, and then you can start this thing towards that, and we're pretty good at that, right? If you do that just a little further, then you have a new start and end point that are super close to each other, okay? So give yourself a start and end point and work it from both directions with these small kind of strokes. This is completely appropriate for a sketch. We're not looking for that because it just won't end up there, right? You'll adjust it the whole way and it'll look like that compared to this, right? So then once you have this working, I think we have a visible line, another unit up, right? That comes over 1, 2, 3. So we do have a visible line up here on top that comes across, right? A certain, I'm not going to do all the measuring, that just takes time right now. But I would do that. Then what you want to do is you want to think about keeping things parallel and straight both. So when I did this one, I was also looking kind of at this line and making sure it stayed parallel. Pretty easy to do with graph paper, right? Like this is not too difficult. Even if it ends up not on the line, you can keep that pretty straight. But to get a line here and here that's parallel to that is trickier. If you know it's parallel, then what I do is I just constantly check my distance and just make sure that I'm staying parallel. Okay, so that's the thing. Parallel lines need to stay parallel. And that's also the key to like isometric sketching. So I can do a vertical line and then I can do a line at an angle. This next line is parallel to this. I really need to just focus on this line and keep it parallel and it'll look good. Like the isometric sketch, once you get one, then just think parallel. And if it doesn't feel parallel, then kind of correct it and then stay vertical. So that one, I'm just looking at this vertical line. I'm not looking at that. I just need everything vertical. And the isometric sketch will look pretty good. And most of the things we draw have these straight edges and straight lines that as long as you keep them vertical, it works. Okay. Arcs. Arcs are trickier, especially if we have an isometric arc. So there's a circle here, right? Looks somewhat centered and then a little bit close to the shelf down here. So I'm going to put it somewhat centered and kind of down low. I'm going to say that's the center point. So sometimes, you know, a center line helps. Not so much for me. It does give me the quadrants. What helps with circles is that you box them in if you're sketching, and we're sketching, right? So boxing them in means draw a box. Like we're pretty good with straight lines, right? So if I say it's like, I don't know, I'll say it's one box up and one box over. It might be bigger than this, but. Build the box first. That looks like a rectangle. Oh, I'm 3, that's why. Yeah, get your box right? So build a box first, then locate the quadrants, and then pull each arc individually. And do it really light so you can kind of fix it as you go. So if you do that, pull each arc individually, you actually end up with a pretty round object. Okay. So any arc, like if there was a fillet on this corner, I would straight line it first. I would locate my quadrants and then I would pull tangent. Because at the quadrant, it's tangent, right? It's almost horizontal. So I pull that and then I just curl it around. That'll give you a fighting chance with curves when you're sketching. Isometric curves, they're tricky. Seems like we always end up with our isometric curve on the wrong like axis. It looks funny if it's on the wrong axis. Box it in. You can't go wrong if you box it in. It'll tell you where those long arcs and those short arcs are for a circle on a plane in an isometric view. So that tells me quadrant to quadrant, I got to pull this one way out, this one way out. Those are the long arcs. And then these are the ones that kind of get pulled up. You'll get your circle correct on that plane if you box it in. If you don't box it in, then you could end up with your circle going the other way, which just looks wacky when it's on there. You just look at it and go, oh, that just hurts my head. It's wrong, right? If you do these light enough and then you darken the circle, you don't have to erase them. It's perfectly good sketching technique. This is a little too, you know, maybe this box is a little too dark, but once I darken the circle, oh, that's ugly, but good enough. I can leave those sketch boxes in there, no problem. Okay. Questions? Get it? All right. You have to build a title block too. So put your border on, that's actually the hardest line you're going to make is like this long border. Like to make a really long straight line that's parallel. I tried to go parallel to that green line, got a little bad here at the end. That's hard to do. These are easier. They're just shorter, right? But give me a title block and then also give me the standard information in the title block, which is scale, date, your name, lab exercise, maybe the school's name or company name type of thing. Okay. I think that's it. Any questions? We're good? All right, I think you have 2 to do. We can look at that real quick. So A size paper, that's what this is. We just did. 11 and 15 is what you're doing, but the tick marks change. So in 11, it's 5 inches, 15, it's 12 inches. So 11 and 15, that's this critter right here. And that slot does go all the way through. So unless we know, unless it tells us a depth to a hole or a depth to a slot, the assumption is it goes all the way through. Okay. And then 15 is that one.
Would that logic be applied to our own graph? So is it strictly in the isometric call out where you get?
No, it's in your own drafts. It's that way. Like if I'm drawing something up and it's got a 1/2 inch drill, right? I'll just draw the 1/2 inch and I'll call it out as 1/2 inch drill. The assumption is you're going through.
Sure.
Unless a depth is given. Yeah. After this, after you're done with these, then probably Thursday, I'll introduce your project to you. So you'll have a little design project, which is super fun. So you'll actually get to draw it, your design, and then we're going to build it. So we'll use the laser cutter to cut the pieces. We'll use the hot glue guns to glue it up. So get these done, and then we will do a little design project. And I'll probably introduce that on Thursday in the lecture. So watch that, and then you can be thinking about it over the weekend, like what your design is going to be. Boom. Good to go. Thanks for coming. So much for fun when people are in the room. You know, when 2 people are in the room. All right, we'll stop this video. For Wilson, hope everything's good, Wilson. He'll watch it. That's why I made it. Stop recording.